Director for Conservation at American Humane. So proud, Brad, to have you be part of this project and to have your vision expressed so beautifully on film. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes. I want to also do a big shout out on behalf of all of us at American Humane and our friends through our Global Humane Network to the Breck Film Board and team and volunteers, donors, and sponsors for making this film festival happen and for including Escape from Extinction. We are so honored to be part of this platform, to be virtual and to be live today with you. And friends, know that we'd wish we could be there with you in person, maybe next time for sure. We're so excited to have premiered. This is actually our world premiere for Escape from Extinction here at Breck with you, and we can't wait to get into the discussion. So let's dive right in. Are you ready, gentlemen?
Yes.
That's great. Here we go. Matt, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to go back and forth with both gentlemen with these great questions. Matt, you know, this is a great film, and I want to thank you so much for bringing it to light. Like the problems facing animals today, this documentary is complex and it's global in scope. What were some of the challenges you faced in making the film?
Well, I think as a filmmaker, some of the hardest things were figuring out what stories to tell, because there are so many stories about animals in need, and how can you tell them in an engaging and interesting manner. And we wanted to share stories of animals that were also charismatic. And that was something that, Robin, you were a big help in, because, you know, there's a lot of fascinating stories about slugs and snails and bugs, and they're so important to our ecosystem, but they don't get the attention that they that we need them to. So one of the things I learned in making this film is that you can talk about an animal like the okapi, and everybody loves the okapi. It's a forest giraffe, and it looks beautiful, and it's the pride of Congo. And if you get people around to save that animal and buy the stuffed animal and support that animal, then all of the animals that live in that ecosystem will then be saved. And that's rainforest animals, and there's thousands and thousands of animals there. So it was taking stories that were interesting that could help an animal, and then the follow-up is that it helps thousands of animals. So we tried to tell stories that had that gravitas, that could help more than just one animal, even if we were just talking about one animal.
Such a great point, too, and I love the okapi. You know, that's one of my favorite. Of course, I love all animals, and we have so many more stories to tell. But this film, I thought, chose some amazing, charismatic animals to share their stories, and most importantly, their plight they face today. So thank you, Matt, for that. Brad, my first question for you. Brad, according to scientists, 1 million species may be lost in our lifetimes or in the lifetimes of our children. What are the underlying factors causing what experts call the 6th mass extinction?
Well, you know, Robin, it's an interesting question, because historically we've gone through the 5 mass extinctions, and different numbers of species have disappeared, and how we've kept track of it historically has been very interesting. But, you know, extinction and evolution is inevitable. But unfortunately, this is 100% faster than any other episode ever. And the culprit is us, it's people, the Homo sapien. And when you think about it, human beings are the only life form on Earth today that can make a difference. We can either stop this, slow it down, or let it go. And it's up to us. The animals don't control this at all. It's up to us to make sure that we can do it.
I really think this film served as that voice for the animals, don't you?
I absolutely do. I mean, we need to be more relevant to the issues that are going on. There's so much nonsense in the world today, but this is the cultural foundation of everything we do. In our human-animal bond, our human-human bond is a mess. So why can't we help each other? We need to help the animals, and we want to make sure that our children's children have something in the future and their sustainability.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad, so much. Matt, back to you. Here's a question for you, my friend. Any good documentary must seek not only to inform, but to touch hearts and minds. The stories of the animals rouse our emotions, but facts are also vitally important in conveying how serious this situation is for our planet. How are you able to rally so many of the world's top scientists and animal experts who were involved in this film?
Well, that's a really good question. We There's a conference every year where the top scientists in the world come out, and we knew that that was coming up in May in San Diego. So we used that as our first major milestone to work around. And then the team in American Humane, who executive produced this project, and it's their first film in your first film in 140-year history. They have connections all over the place. So we would do a pre-call every week with a different scientist, a different expert, and talk about what they worked on, what their stories were. And we would find these stories that we thought were really interesting and we could share and wanted to share. So when we got to this conference in May of, I guess it's May of 2 years ago now, we had an idea of what we wanted to talk about and with these experts. And these are the top scientists in the world in this field. And we wanted to make sure it was really important through this film that we're listening to science. This is a film that's based on science. It's not based on emotion. And a lot of what you find in zoos is people's reactions are emotional. They say, oh, the cage is too small. But well, what's that based on? Is that based on you think it's too small? Because the scientists over here that study this and understand this for a living, this is actually very strategic the way it's set up. And I didn't understand that before doing this film, and now I do. So there's so many stories like that where it's the scientists that are running the show and learning from animals in zoo and saving the animals in the wild with this knowledge.
So true. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. And it was a remarkable slate of the world's top animal experts who participated and gave their thought leadership, their time, and their talent to contribute to this incredibly interesting and important narrative. Brad, back to you. To cope with ecological disaster that we're seeing with the sixth mass extinction, what changes have you seen the zoological world make in the last 48 years? That's a huge question, by the way.
Yeah, 48 years, I'm not sure if I can remember that far back, but the programs of excellence that have been developed in husbandry, veterinary care, nutrition, behavior, animal training, water quality, physiology, reproductive biology, the welfare of animals and the study of their compatibilities and things like that. We have developed these programs of excellence over the years, and it's getting better and better and better because we have passionate, knowledgeable people who really care about learning everything they can to take care of these animals properly, because there is no wild left anymore. So we have to manage these animals no matter where they're at and what their surroundings are. So you need these passionate people and these programs of excellence to cross over to what we call ex situ and mid situ and then in situ, which is really the transition from back and forth and where we take care of these animals. So it's the people and their passion and their knowledge.
It's really incredibly important too to talk about that. And it has been a lot of changes over 48 years regarding our approach to animals, endangered species, and our focus on conservation. Matt, question back to you. And of course, with any mission-driven documentary, and this film is such a mission-driven documentary, you need the best talent to help convey the information and to heighten the urgency of its premise. How were you able to secure the inspirational, amazing Dame Helen Mirren as narrator and the beautiful song of the incredibly talented Grammy Award-winning musician Lisa Loeb for this documentary?
I would love to say that it was some sort of great skill, but it really was a little bit of luck too. Brenda Bank, who's an associate producer on the film, and I made a list of people that we thought would be spectacular, and we didn't think we could get any of them. And we reached out to Helen Mirren's agent with Robin's blessing, and he said yes. It was really that simple. And then it became about scheduling, and we wanted to go to her when she was in the United States to be responsible with our budget, and we were able to record with her in February, and the world shut down in March, so we got in just under the wire, or we would not be premiering at this film festival today. and the publicist that was helping us with the film and getting some stories out there, I was trying to come up with an end credit song. I wanted something really special and powerful, and I wanted something that celebrated these scientists and these doctors, because these people love what they do, and that's what you don't always understand when you go to a zoo or a facility and see these are their pets. You see people talking about their dog and say how much they love them and their dogs on their Christmas card. That's what the animals at these zoos are like. They love them. They are so proud of them. They will do anything for them. They are their little adorable creatures that they love. And so I wanted a song that celebrated the doctors and scientists in our film. And I saw a post online that the publicist that was helping us with this film was also Lisa Loeb's publicist. And I immediately went onto her Spotify. I heard the song Sing Out, and I was like, this song is amazing. This would be perfect for us. And she said not only did she love the film and she loved the cause, but she would love to give us some other films, some other songs. So we actually have 4 of her songs in the film.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them are instrumental because the lyrics didn't quite make sense for what we were talking about, but the music and the instrumentation did. And then Sing Out is our closing credit song, and she actually gave us an exclusive extended version of the song. So it's actually the first time the world is hearing the song, as well as today, this version.
I love that song. I think it just really is so great. And I'm so grateful on a personal level that Helen and Lisa allowed their voices to be used for the animals, because this is such an important and timely subject when we were talking about saving animals' lives, saving animals from extinction, and helping to make a better and more humane world. I'm so grateful for these 2 incredible women for stepping up and joining forces with us to make this. Thank you for that insight, Matt. So cool. Brad, we're going to go back to you for a question. You know, this is, I think, the crux for so many people who want to get involved, who want to save animal lives. American Humane's been working, as you know, for 143 years to protect and preserve animals, including the bald eagle, marine mammals, endangered species. What do you think, Brad, after spending your life devoted to conservation? What do you think is needed to stem the tide, to change the tide of extinction?
I think what's really needed is a film like this, number one. Number two, I think the urgency, we are all facing such difficult times and decisions on a daily basis, and that's understandable. But the reality is, again, the urgency of doing something quickly and smart. It's also important to use knowledgeable people, to listen to the science, talk to them, figure out what you can do. You need to use also the partnerships of people that live in different parts of the world. You just can't come in and bulldoze in and say, we're going to save your animals in the trees. You've got to have them involved. So all of these organizations have beautiful people that really want to do that. So you have to work together. We have to do it as a team. And as you know, when you're in athletics, if you don't work together as a team, you're not going to win. And right now, we're not winning. We're not winning in a lot of areas, believe me. So it's so important now that we all continue to look at the reality of today, tomorrow, and the next day, because we don't have enough time to mess around. We have to move now.
Thank you, Brad. And speaking of moving now, I'm going to take a quick question from our audience Q&A and then get back to some of these other questions. Beth has proposed this question. She loves traveling to zoos. And now is going to look for certification in the future. So thank you, Beth. That's really important for the animal care. I want all animals to live a humane life, and I think it's really important that we look for those independent certifications of assuring that that animal has a humane life. So thank you for looking for that. She asked if zoos and aquariums are in the anti-plastic movement. Are they removing plastics from their facilities as much as they possibly can? And Brad, I know because I've traveled with you to zoos around the world and aquariums around the world, are they removing enough plastics from their facilities as possible?
Absolutely. Most leading zoos and aquariums have already done that. The steps have been taken. They've done that way out in front of everybody else. They're into the whole idea of how do we continue to educate the public about microplastics and where do the plastics come from? How do they end up in the ocean or end in the streams? So the knowledge is the most important crossover here. How do we get to the guests, inspire them, and understand once they leave that zoo or aquarium, that they understand that they can be a part of the solution. So there's always these issues out there, but they're way ahead in that area. And quite frankly, conservation education is one of the keys also, because again, it's the messaging, the take home. It's got to be fun, it's got to be exciting, and people need to think that they're going to make a difference. Because a lot of people go, it's a big problem, it's not my problem, I can't do anything about it. Everyone can do something, believe me, everyone.
It's a great take-home tune. Matt, I'm going to go back to you really quickly. We're going to pivot because anyone who watches this film is coming into it loving animals, right? Matt, it's not your first time working with American Humane. How did your relationship begin with us?
With you, actually. I was lucky enough to work on the Hero Dog Awards, the inaugural Hero Dog Awards show, and Robin tasked me with directing and producing some content for the show, and we were able to tell some amazing and emotional stories about some heroic animals, specifically dogs, but also tell some stories about some heroic people in the animal community, like Betty White. And we did a beautiful documentary piece on Betty White and the history of American Humane. And I think all of these pieces were kind of what Robin was looking for in this documentary. So when this project came along, she called me and said, we should talk about telling this story and how to tell this story. And that's how the relationship began and how it turned into Escape from Extinction.
Yes, it did 2 years ago. And before that, it was 10 years ago that you and I began this incredible journey of sharing through media stories of animals and their lives, and really sharing what I believe is so needed today, our core values of compassion, kindness, and love. Isn't that what we all share? We all share those values, compassion, kindness, and love, and we see that in our relationship with animals. I want to go back to Brad. Brad, earlier we had a question, which I thought was so good too, from one of our audience members, and I think this is great. What are the most impactful things that an everyday person can do to benefit our wild animals?
I think, that's a tough question. You can do so many things, and it's difficult to choose what you want to do or can do. First of all, supporting your local zoo and aquarium is very important, because they, again, going back to what I said earlier, they have the most knowledgeable, passionate people. And by supporting what you do is you're actually giving to the conservation movement. Conservation does cost money and costs lots of money. So if you support these institutions, you're supporting the knowledge transfer and the money transfer to the field. And that's so important in conservation, to get the money out there to actually do something. Right now, during COVID-19, a lot of conservation programs have come to a screeching halt, and we need to get that back on track, and we need to move it quick. So support your local zoo and aquarium, make sure they're accredited and certified, make sure that you can go and ask the right questions to make sure those animals are treated well. That's important for you, but ask the questions, and I tell you what, they do make a difference, and you've got to be able to support them, and they will actually find things for you to do to help this passionate program keep moving on.
Such a great point, Brad. And I want to follow up on that. Jones asked, is there more funding available to get more zoos accredited, just thereby raising awareness? And isn't that so important too?
The funding is very difficult right now for everyone. Some of these zoos and aquariums around the world have been closed for 6-7 months. And a lot of their revenue, you think about revenue, are they profit making? No, that's not the point. The point is when you feed animals day in and day out and have these beautiful people that take care of these animals, you've got to keep them there. You just can't let them go. You can't furlough them out. You can't let them go. And, this is important. So what we need to do is retrench ourselves, get everything back on track, make sure people are coming and visiting and doing it safely and doing it right. But again, learning how they can help and supporting these wonderful programs.
Brad, you and I were just a few months. Oh, go ahead, Matt, please.
Well, I just wanted to echo what Brad was saying. Making this film, I learned a lot too, which was really exciting, because you're actually, as a filmmaker, you know how to make movies and tell stories, but you're actually learning. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much about the programs that are sponsored in every country in the world to save animals. So, people do ask that all the time. How can I help? How can I help? Well, spend money at the places that are helping. Some of the zoos had multiple programs in other countries and other facilities just training. We talk about in the film hanging chilies around elephant, to keep elephants out of farm communities, or honeybees. Those were just two things. The zoos are going in and training that. There was hundreds and hundreds of those stories. We just picked those because they sounded the most relatable. Some of the zoos plant lupines. They have the kids go in their backyard and plant lupines. Lupines are for butterflies. If the lupines aren't there, the butterflies aren't there. That's something that every kid can do, and it costs $5. So there's so many things that you can do, and that's what feels really good about this program and platform, is that it is attainable. We don't feel like we can stop the polar ice caps from melting in our living room. That's a tough one, but we can go in our backyard and plant some flowers that the bees and butterflies can enjoy.
Absolutely. And one of our attendees is encouraging less waste and composting too. And that's also very, very important, and reducing palm oil consumption. I did a huge report on palm oil consumption about a decade ago, and it is shocking. So that's critically important. Thanks, Beth, and thanks, Diana, for bringing up those points. Really, really important. And I also want to share with all of our attendees who are passionate about conservation and passionate about saving animals from extinction. As Brad mentioned earlier, and Matt as well, the next generation, training and educating the next generation to be conservationists is incredibly important as we face the challenges of the sixth mass extinction right in our lifetimes and in our children's lifetimes. So American Humane just a couple of years ago created the Humane Heroes curriculum and books. We created books that are so incredibly charming. They're educational. There are 3 levels: elementary, middle, and high school levels. They were created in partnership with Chicken Soup for the Soul. All of those books are available on ebook platforms for free. So you can download those books and you can correspond matching curriculum that has been written by and with teachers. And again, that's American Humane Humane Heroes. It's our book series, and you can go to our website, americanhumane.org, and search for Humane Heroes. And not only will you see the links to those ebooks that are available for free, the curriculum also available for free. We've also put together video storytelling times where your kids can watch videos of American Humane reading these charming, wonderful stories about animals in zoos and aquariums, hopefully serving as an inspiration to the next generation to go out and continue the fight that all of us are doing together to save animal lives. Brad, I want to go back to you really quickly, and I want to ask you, because this I think is so important as a follow-up to what conversations we've been having. The fate of animals and people are so closely intertwined, as shown by the worldwide pandemic, which started overseas in a cruel and unsanitary wet market. Brad, you and I have both seen those in person. It's hard to get those visuals out of our head. It's really impossible. American Humane recently called to end unregulated and inhumane markets as part of our 10-point New Deal for animals, people, and the world we share. Have you been to a wet market? I know you have. Tell us what it's like, if you could.
It's a dreadful experience. I've been taking care of animals for all my life, and this isn't something I intended to do, but it's something I've fallen into, and I love it. But some of those wet markets are horrible to walk through. You just can't believe what you're seeing. You're seeing animals in squalid, compact little cages, and they're stacked on top of each other, and they're being butchered right there. This is not a sanitary process. It's not like it's an open vegetable market or anything that we experience whatsoever. And I know it's a cultural issue, but somebody has got to get into the 21st century and realize this isn't the way to do it. And there's other better ways to do these things, because what we found with COVID-19, obviously, if it goes back to that original source, what everybody thinks it came from a wet market where there was, animals that were being mistreated and compacted into horrible conditions. What that does to an organism and to a little animal is it puts a continuous stress on their immune system. It makes them ill. It brings out the illness that's transferring it to a zoonotic agent, to a human, is just beyond belief. And I've talked to people about a pandemic for years, and they look at me like, you got horns coming out of your head. But yet, here we are, we're living in one, because we have too many people doing too many bad things, and we're not protecting our resources properly.
And that's why we put together the New Deal to present to policy leaders around the world to end these inhumane practices. So important. And we see the results in Escape from Extinction, which I believe is a message of hope, though, for the future. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you for this incredibly, I think, a great capstone question. What have you learned, Matt, through the making of this film that made you think and you hope will make others think?
I think that the biggest thing I learned was that I think I am like most of the world, where we like zoos, we think they're cool, and it's fun to show your kids animals and take some pictures. And, it seems like a lot of the animals are maybe, being rescued or rehabilitated, and that's a good thing. And that was kind of my basic level of what zoos do. And in making this film, I learned so much about all of the innovations and the brains behind and the science behind saving these animals. The biggest takeaway for me was that you can't help the animals in the wild if you don't understand them. And we can't go and help a population of Mexican wolves if we don't have a Mexican wolf that we can study and learn from. We were down to 7 or 8 Mexican wolves. That's not enough. They can't find each other. We have poachers. There's so many problems. And the people that are saving these animals are employed by the zoos. So going back to Brad's question, or I'm sorry, for Beth's question from earlier, you supporting these zoos are supporting these scientists' salary that are out in the field saving these animals in the wild. It's all connected, and I did not understand that connection. I did not understand that the pangolin is the #1 traded mammal in the world, and it's the most beautiful creature, and I had never even heard of a pangolin. So I've learned so much from making this film, and I just want to get out and help more. And part of my passion in getting people to see this film is, #1, because it's a good film, but #2 is it really can help animals and help understanding. The biggest issue I think we have in the zoo community is misinformation. People just don't understand what's happening there. And if I know that 2 years ago I didn't understand, then I know most of the people on my community doesn't understand either. So I hope that people will take these 89 minutes and learn, and it's going to help all of us in the long run.
Yeah, thank you for that. Brad, we've been on this journey with this film, with Matt, and with all the other incredible thought leaders and scientists who contributed their time and their platform. What have you learned in making this film, and what do you hope it'll make others think?
Well, I want to go back and thank all the scientists that Matt interviewed, and because they were so engaged in telling their stories, and Matt was so good at getting them to express exactly what motivates them, what makes them tick. And that ticking inside of them is what makes me tick. It's inspiring. It's #1, it's inspiring. #2, it's innovative. #3, we're getting things done. And when you let people that are smart to act fast and support them well, we are going to have the future that we're going to be proud of for our grandchildren's grandchildren. And that has to happen. But these people at Conservation Planning Specialist Group and IUCN and the Species Survival Commissions, these people are just awesome people that work with zoos and aquarium personnel hand in hand with the government officials in range countries, and they're trying to do this work. So we just got to find a way to help them and mold that team and keep it moving.
That's beautiful. We have one last question from one of our attendees, and I don't know if anyone has the latest information on this. It's a political question regarding a ballot issue in Colorado. Does anybody know of an update on the ballot issue in Colorado to reintroduce wolves in the state? Does anybody have any latest information? That I know we have a lot of great wolf friends in our wonderful American Humane family. Brad, do you have the latest on that, or should we?
No, I don't. I really don't know. I hope it's good legislation, because there's unintended consequences in a lot of the legislation that seems to come out when you have issues that are going on with animals and the movement of animals. And some people out there right now don't want to move animals anywhere. Well, sometimes you've got to, and we've got to do it for the right reasons. So I don't know what's going on in Colorado right now, but we could certainly find out if we can help.
That'd be great. We will definitely do that. Well, gentlemen, I'd like to ask for any of your closing thoughts as we wrap up our first panel Q&A for the world premiere of Escape from Extinction. Again, our labor of love and our incredible opportunity to be the voice for animals that we want to ensure that we do save. Matt, closing thoughts.
When we started making this film, there was an environmental crisis with fires, and then there was in California, and then there was an environmental crisis with fires in the Amazon, and then there was an environmental crisis with fires in Australia, and then there was floods, and there was hurricanes, and there was the pandemic. And this has all happened just since we've been making this film. These problems are not going away. This is not a temporary thing. This is not going to be fixed by the end of this film. We need to keep going, and we need to make sure that the animals aren't forgotten. And when people are worried about their masks and their health and their livelihood, they're forgetting about animals. So we just want to, my goal for this film is just to make sure that people aren't forgetting about the animals, and we need to make sure that they're safe from extinction, because it does happen and it will happen. And there was already an extinction in 2020, which you saw in the beginning of our film, and that's not going to be the last one. We need to help, and we need to help now.
Great. Brad, how about to you, my friend?
Well, Robin, you've heard me say this before, and sometimes people think this analogy is very strange, but I spent a lot of time playing the game of rugby. And the game of rugby is a rough and tough game sometimes. And quite frankly, I think I played it with a bunch of animals. But the reality was, after the first game, I came off the field and bloodied and bruised, and we had lost. And I asked the coach, I said, "Coach, what are the points? How do you win at this game?" He said, "There's 4 things, Brad. You got to have the fire in your heart and the ice in your brains." And I said, "Well, fire in your heart and ice in your brains, I understand that. It's an emotional issue. And yeah, okay, rah, rah." And then he started to walk away from me, and I go, "Whoa, Pat, please come back. Tell me what the other 2 are." He goes, "You have to be fast and smart." And ladies and gentlemen, I think we're smart people, but I don't think we're fast enough. And I think we've got to find a way to pick up the speed and running a little faster, work more together, and improve the human-human bond, so the human-animal bond will come with it, and treat each other nicely and take care of the animals in our lives.
Thank you. Thank you. And I always believe you can't protect what you don't love, and you can't love what you don't know. And I hope that you've learned a lot more about these incredible animals through Escape from Extinction. And I hope you will join me in building a more humane world. Friends, we're out of time for our first Q&A. I want to thank again Breck Film, the volunteers, the donors, the staff. Just thank you so much for allowing us to premiere this documentary with you. Thank you so much. Be safe and take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robin. That was amazing.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to Breck Film Festival.